The American Way of War by Russell Frank Weigley, Macmillan Publishing. Talks about all the wars in America until 1976. It's got 5 parts, and part 2 is the young America as a military power. Robert E. Lee tried to revive, according to the author, the Napoleonic strategy of seeking the enemy out in a decisive battle, particularly through the concentration of forces. Now, according to Weigley, in Chapter 7, America transitioned from limited warfare to a strategy of annihilation, especially the Union strategy of annihilation that took America into the new era where it was on par with any of its adversaries in the 19th century and beyond. But he also states that the continuous search for the strategy of annihilation made it eventually obsolete, which made future wars less destructive. I'm going to mention some notable highlights here. Chapter 6, Napoleonic Strategy, Robert A. Lee and the Confederacy. Page 97. The Confederacy could not afford an essentially passive defense such as George Washington had employed. The only way to prevent the Union from applying fatal pressures somewhere along the Confederate circumference, the reasoning of such leaders was to seize the initiative. The kind of concentration that serves as the defensive strategy best is that which causes the enemy to draw strength away from the vital points or leads him to disperse his forces. Page 119. The strategy of passive defense had thrown away most of the logistically crucial state of Tennessee. Consequently, General Johnson switched strategies to attempt a counterattack and a redemptive Napoleonic battle. Chapter 7, A Strategy of Annihilation, U.S. Grant and the Union. Page 129. The effort to fulfill an offensive strategy by means of decisive Napoleonic battle bled Lee's army to exhaustion. Page 132. The northern reservoir of manpower was not inexhaustible, even apart from the moral consideration that excessive losses in a battle might destroy the relatively fragile northern will to continue the war. With that moral consideration added to the physical ones, the northern generals faced perplexing problems in waging an offensive war of conquest in pursuit of rapid victory without suffering casualties so severe that they would destroy the very resolution which the quest for rapidity of conquest was supposed to sustain. Page 141. So little was Grant influenced by the Napoleonic infatuation with the battle as the supreme means in war, unlike Lee, that he believed even Winfield Scott had fought too many battles. Grant proposed the strategy of annihilation based upon the principle of concentration in mass, hitting the main Confederate armies with the concentrated thrust of massive federal forces until the Confederate armies were smashed into impotence. This gives you an idea that he was just using force to subdue the Confederacy. And although that's true, it does not mean that it was a blind commitment of manpower without considerations for human losses. Lee was also focused on concentrating forces, but because his army was smaller and he did not have an overall offensive strategy, even though he conducted raids. His idea was to, like Napoleon, keep his forces divided and then concentrate them to hit the enemy where it would do the most harm. That is similar to what the author is saying Grant's strategy was, but in Grant's case, again, it's in a broader sense, concentration of forces along the campaign. Grant's method, page 143, of achieving the destruction of the enemy army was not to seek the Austerlitz battle, a method which had been tried in the East for 3 years by both sides and found wanting, but rather an extension of the concept of battle, until the battle became literally synonymous with the whole campaign. He would fight all the time, every day, keeping the enemy army always within his own army's grip, allowing the enemy no opportunity for deceptive maneuver, but always pounding away until his own superior resources permitted the Federal armies to survive, while the enemy army at last disintegrated. I run across people that, they play the war games, American Civil War games and other games. More often than not, they have a more superficial knowledge, but they have a great passion to understand more. And so books like these, The American Way of War, are excellent to give you a good head start on on understanding military strategy without feeling overwhelmed. So I highly recommend The American Way of War, and enjoy.